The academy floated in space like a shining city of glass and steel. It was known across many star systems as the best place to train future leaders, warriors, and commanders. Students came from powerful alien races, tall, strong, fast, and proud. Each one carried their own history, their own victories. Humans were not part of those stories. In classroom 7A, the air was calm but tense. Rows of advanced seats faced a large transparent screen. Soft blue lights glowed from the walls. Students talked quietly among themselves before the lesson began. At the very back of the room, almost hidden in the shadow, sat a human girl. Her name was Lena Voss. She sat still, her hands resting on her lap. Her uniform was plain. No marks. No rank. No signs of skill. Her dark hair was tied back simply. Her face showed no emotion. She looked like someone who did not belong there. In front of her, a group of alien students whispered and laughed. "Why is she even here?" one of them said. "I heard humans failed most of their early space wars," another replied. A tall, horned student turned slightly and looked at Lena with a smirk. "She probably got in by mistake." Lena heard them. She always heard them. But she never reacted. The classroom door opened, and the instructor walked in. He was a respected officer from a well-known war species. His presence alone was enough to silence the room. "Take your seats," he said calmly. The students straightened up. The screen behind him came to life, showing a rotating map of a distant battlefield. "Today," the instructor began, "we study real combat strategy. Not theory. Not simulation. Real war decisions." The class became more interested. Many students leaned forward. War was something they respected. War was something they understood. "Tell me," the instructor said, walking slowly between the rows, "how many of you have seen real combat?" Almost half the class raised their hands proudly. Some even smiled. One student said, "I fought in the Outer Rim conflict." Another added, "My unit defended 3 systems during invasion." The room filled with quiet confidence. The instructor nodded. "Good. Experience matters." Then his eyes moved toward the back. Toward Lena. "And you?" he asked. The room turned. All eyes focused on her. Lena did not move. She kept looking down. A few students chuckled. "She probably thinks training sims count," someone whispered. The horned student laughed louder this time. "Maybe she got scared and ran away before any real fight." More laughter spread across the room. The instructor waited. "Answer the question," he said. Lena slowly raised her eyes. For a brief moment, her gaze met his. Then she looked away again. "No," she said quietly. "Just one word. Soft. Calm. Empty." The class laughed again. The instructor did not smile, but he said nothing more. He turned back to the screen. "Very well. Let's begin." The lesson started with a combat simulation. The screen showed a battlefield filled with moving units, explosions, and tactical paths. "Who can suggest the best attack route?" the instructor asked. Hands went up quickly. Students gave answers with confidence. They spoke about speed, power, and control. The instructor listened, but he was not impressed. Then, without warning, the system flickered. The screen glitched. Lines of static ran across the display. The room grew quiet. "That's strange," the instructor muttered. "This system does not fail." The screen went black. Then suddenly, a new file appeared. It was not part of the lesson. It had no clear label at first. Just a blinking line. Then words slowly formed. Classified record, Human Command Unit. The room froze. No one spoke. The word human caught everyone's attention. Who opened that? The instructor asked sharply. No one answered. I did not request this file. The system beeped again. The file opened on its own. At first, there was nothing but darkness. Then a sound. Distant explosions. The screen filled with smoke. Fire lit up the sky. A battlefield appeared. It was not a simulation. It looked real. Too real. The ground was broken. Buildings were falling. Ships were burning in the sky. Students leaned forward in their seats. This is not in our records, one of them whispered. Figures moved through the smoke. Soldiers. Fast. Organized. Fighting against overwhelming force. Energy blasts filled the air. The camera shook as if it was part of the battle. Then, a human unit appeared on screen. The room went silent again. Humans, in a war like this. Leading. Commanding. The instructor stepped closer to the screen. Pause, he said. The image froze. The figure in front wore full armor. The face was hidden behind a helmet. Zoom in, someone said quietly. The system responded. The image became clearer. The soldier reached up. And slowly removed the helmet. The class held its breath. A face appeared. Calm. Focused. Strong. Familiar. Very familiar. A student whispered, almost in disbelief. That's her. Another voice followed. No, it can't be. All eyes turned. Slowly. Toward the back of the room. Toward Lena. She was sitting exactly the same as before. Quiet. Still. But this time, something felt different. The instructor looked at her, his expression no longer calm. Lena Voss, he said slowly. You said you had no combat experience. Silence filled the room. Lena did not answer. The screen behind them flickered again, showing flames rising higher, the battle continuing without pause. The truth was no longer hidden. And everyone in that room knew. They had been wrong. The classroom stayed frozen. No one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the low hum of the system and the distant noise of war still playing on the screen. Flames burned across ruined land. Ships fell from the sky. Smoke covered everything. And in the middle of it, that human soldier. That face. Lena's face. The instructor stepped closer to the screen. His eyes were sharp now, no longer calm like before. Play it, he said. The system obeyed. The video continued. The human unit moved forward through heavy fire. They were fast, controlled, and precise. Every step looked planned. Every move had purpose. Lena was leading them. Left side, move now, her voice came from the video. It was strong. Clear. Full of command. The class felt a shock. This was not the quiet girl they knew. This was someone else. Explosions hit near the unit. Dust filled the air. One soldier fell. Lena turned back, grabbed him, and pulled him to cover. Stay with me, she shouted. Energy blasts hit the ground around them. Enemy machines advanced through the smoke, large, dark, and powerful. They're pushing fast, one student whispered in the classroom. Another said, no human unit should survive that. But on the screen, they were still fighting. The instructor folded his arms, watching closely. He did not interrupt. He did not explain. He was trying to understand. The video shifted to another angle. A drone view from above. The battlefield was massive. Hundreds of enemy units surrounded a small human force. "They're outnumbered," someone said. "By a lot." Yet the human unit did not retreat. Lena pointed forward. "Hold the line," she commanded. Her team responded without question. They moved like one. They trusted her. The class leaned forward in silence. This was not normal. This was not expected. Another explosion hit close. The ground broke apart. Fire rose high. For a moment, Lena disappeared in the smoke. A few students in the classroom held their breath. Then she stepped out again. Unhurt. Still leading. Still fighting. "How?" a student whispered. The video cut suddenly. The screen went black. The room filled with quiet confusion. "Why did it stop?" someone asked. Before anyone could answer, the screen lit up again. A new label appeared. Mission Log, Unit 17, Final Defense. The instructor's face became serious. "This is not training footage," he said slowly. "This is real war data, and it is highly classified." "Then how is it here?" a student asked. No one had the answer. The system began playing again. This time, the view was closer. Inside a broken structure. Walls cracked. Lights flickering. The human unit had taken shelter. Some were injured. One soldier said, "We can't hold much longer." Another added, "Enemy forces are closing in from all sides." Lena stood in the center. Calm. Focused. She looked at each of her team members. "We hold," she said. Her voice was not loud, but it carried strength. "We protect the civilians until evacuation." A soldier shook his head. "There are too many. We won't make it." Lena looked at him. "We don't need to make it," she replied. "We just need to buy time." The classroom went silent again. Those words stayed in the air. Simple. But heavy. The video showed her walking to a broken window. Outside, the battlefield was getting worse. Enemy machines moved closer. The sky was dark with smoke and fire. She opened a communication channel. "Command, this is Unit 17, she said. No response. Static filled the line. She tried again. "Command, respond." Nothing. The connection was gone. "They're alone," one student whispered. No backup. No support. No escape. Just a small human unit, against an entire force. The video cut again. Another label appeared. Casualty report, updated. Names began to appear on the screen. One by one. Marked as lost. The class watched quietly. No one joked now. No one laughed. The same students who mocked her earlier sat still, unable to speak. The horned student who had laughed the loudest looked down at his desk. His hands were tight. The video returned once more. Now the fight had moved outside again. Closer. More intense. The enemy had reached their position. Lena stood at the front. Weapon ready. Face calm. Behind her, her team prepared for the final stand. "Positions," she said. They followed. No fear. Only trust. The first wave hit. Loud. Fast. Dangerous. Energy blasts filled the air. The ground shook. The structure behind them collapsed. Lena moved forward. She did not wait. She attacked. Fast. Precise. Every shot counted. Every move mattered. The class watched in complete silence. No one could believe what they were seeing. This was not just survival. This was skill. This was leadership. This was something far beyond what they had expected from a human. From her. The instructor spoke quietly, almost to himself. This is command-level combat. The video slowed for a moment. A close-up of Lena's face appeared again. Dust on her skin. Fire reflecting in her eyes. But no fear. Only focus. Only determination. Then. The screen froze. Everything stopped. The room felt heavy. The system gave a final soft beep. And new words appeared. File status, restricted, access violation detected. The instructor stepped back. This file should not be here, he said firmly. It is not part of Academy records. A student asked, then why is her name on it? No one answered. All eyes slowly turned again. Toward Lena. She sat in the same place. Quiet. Still. But now, the silence around her was different. It was no longer filled with mockery. It was filled with something else. Something heavier. Something real. The instructor looked at her one more time. Lena Voss, he said. Explain. Then. The system turned on again by itself. A low sound filled the room. Not explosions this time, but a calm, cold voice. A narrator. This record is restricted. Access level, high command only. The students looked at each other. Even the instructor did not move. No one dared to stop it now. The screen slowly showed a new image. A map of space. Several star systems were marked in red. One system blinked brighter than the others. The narrator spoke again. Year 2473. Unknown enemy forces entered human space without warning. The class listened carefully. This was not in any of their lessons. This was not in any history records they knew. No alliance responded. No support arrived. Human systems were isolated. A student whispered, "Why didn't anyone help them?" Another answered quietly, "Maybe no one believed they could survive." The screen zoomed into the red system. Planets burned. Cities destroyed. Ships broken in orbit. The enemy was stronger. Faster. More advanced, the narrator continued. Human forces were outmatched in every way. The classroom grew still. They had always believed humans were weak. But this was something else. The screen changed again. Now it showed a group of young soldiers standing in line. Human soldiers. Not older, not experienced. Young. Almost the same age as the students in the room. "Those are recruits," someone said softly. Then. A familiar face appeared in the line. Lena. Younger. But the same eyes. Calm. Quiet. Different from the others. One student in the classroom leaned forward. "She was just a recruit." Another whispered, "Then how did she become that soldier we saw?" The video continued. It showed the first battle. Chaos. Loud. Fast. Human forces breaking under pressure. Ships destroyed in seconds. Units lost without warning. The enemy was everywhere. Large machines moved across the land. Dark ships filled the sky. Energy blasts rained down like fire. "This is not a war," one student said. "This is destruction. No direction. Just survival." Then, the view changed. A small group of human soldiers running through smoke. Leading them. Lena. Not loud. Not shouting. But moving with purpose. Unit 17, the narrator said. Formed after command failure. Led by field promotion. A student frowned. Field promotion. That means. The instructor finished the sentence quietly. It means there was no one else left to lead. The room went silent again. The video showed Lena giving signals with her hand. Smart. Lena guiding her team through hidden paths. Setting traps for enemy units. Saving small groups of civilians. Each mission looked impossible. But they kept surviving. How are they doing this? Someone whispered. The instructor did not answer. He was watching Lena closely. Trying to understand her. The video moved forward in time. Days passed. Then weeks. The war did not stop. But Unit 17 was still alive. Still moving. Still fighting. Another clip appeared. A group of civilians trapped under a collapsed structure. Enemy forces close. Time running out. Lena looked at the situation. Then gave a simple order. Split. Fast entry. No noise. Her team moved instantly. They worked together. Careful. Precise. They reached the civilians just before the enemy arrived. One by one, they carried them out. No panic. No mistakes. The classroom watched in silence. This was not luck. This was skill. This was leadership. Another student said quietly. She saved them, even when she didn't have to. The narrator spoke again. Unit 17 completed multiple rescue missions under extreme risk. The screen showed a list of missions. All successful. All impossible. The video then slowed down. A quiet moment appeared. Lena sitting alone. Looking at a broken piece of metal. A name was written on it. A soldier's name. Lost. The class noticed the change. She lost people too, someone said. The room felt different now. Not shocked. Not confused. But, understanding. The video moved again. Another battle. Bigger than before. The enemy had found their position. No place to hide. No way out. Unit 17 stood together. Tired. Wounded. But ready. Lena looked at her team. Then forward. At the enemy. Her voice came through again. We don't stop here. Simple words. But strong. The class listened carefully. For the first time. No one saw her as weak. Survival rate, unknown. The classroom stayed still. No one moved. No one spoke. They had just seen a war. That they were never meant to know. And in that war. The quiet girl in the back of the class. Was not just a student. She was a survivor. All eyes slowly turned toward Lena again. But this time. There was no laughter. Only silence. And something new. Respect, beginning to grow. The screen went dark. The voice of the narrator faded away. The classroom was completely silent. No one moved. No one whispered. The same students who once laughed at Lena now sat still, their eyes slowly turning toward her. But Lena did not look up. She sat the same way as before, quiet, still, her hands resting together. Only now, the silence around her felt different. Heavy. Real. The instructor stood near the front, staring at the blank screen. His mind was trying to understand what he had just seen. A war no one knew about. A human unit that should not have survived. And at the center of it, Lena Voss. He turned slowly. His voice was no longer strong like before. It was calmer. Careful. Lena, he said. She did not respond. The instructor stepped closer. That file, those missions, that unit. He paused. Then asked the question everyone was thinking. Was that you? The room held its breath. All eyes were on her. Lena remained still for a few seconds. Then slowly, she nodded. Just once. A small movement. But it changed everything. A quiet shock passed through the room. No one spoke, but everyone felt it. It was true. The girl they ignored. The girl they mocked. Was the same person they had just seen on the battlefield. The instructor took a slow breath. Why didn't you say anything? He asked. His voice was not angry. It was confused. Lena finally lifted her head. For the first time, she looked at the class. Not at one person. At all of them. Her eyes were calm, but there was something deep inside them. Something tired. Something heavy. Because it's over, she said softly. Her voice was simple. No pride. No emotion. Just truth. A student in the front spoke carefully, that war, we never learned about it. Lena looked at him. You weren't supposed to, she replied. The class went quiet again. Another student asked, why was it hidden? Lena did not answer right away. She looked down at her hands again. Then said, slowly. Because we almost lost everything. The words felt cold in the room. No one knew how to respond. The horned student, the same one who laughed at her before, shifted in his seat. He looked uncomfortable now. Different. He spoke, but his voice was not strong anymore. You were leading that unit, right? Lena nodded again. Yes. A pause. Then he asked, how did you do it? The question was simple. But it carried weight. Lena stayed silent for a moment. Then she answered. We didn't think about winning. The class listened carefully. We only thought about surviving, one more day. Her words were quiet. But they filled the room. The instructor stepped closer. You were just a recruit, he said. No command training. No high-level experience. Lena gave a small nod. Yes. Then why did they follow you? Another long pause. Lena looked toward the screen. At the place where the battlefield had been. They didn't follow me because I was the best, she said. Her voice stayed calm. They followed me because I was still there. The room felt heavier. A student whispered, still there. Lena continued. Leaders kept falling. Orders stopped coming. Units broke apart. She spoke like she was remembering something far away. Someone had to move forward, so I did. No drama. No pride. Just simple truth. The class understood now. She did not become a leader because she wanted power. She became a leader because no one else was left. Another student asked quietly, your team, what happened to them? Lena's eyes changed slightly. Just a little. But enough to be noticed. They fought, she said. And they stayed, until they couldn't. The meaning was clear. Many of them did not survive. The room fell silent again. Even the students who once spoke loudly now had nothing to say. The instructor lowered his voice. And after the war? Lena looked away. It ended, she said. That's all. But it did not feel like all. The class could see it. Something more was there. Something she was not saying. The instructor noticed it too. You left the military, he said. Yes. You came here, to study again? Lena nodded. I wanted something normal. The word normal felt strange in that moment. After everything they had seen. Nothing about her life felt normal. The horned student slowly stood up. The same one who laughed at her before. He looked at Lena, then down at the floor. He started, but stopped. He tried again. I didn't know. His voice was low. Real. She never did. The instructor looked at the class. Then back at Lena. You could have told us, he said. You could have shown your record. Your rank. Your experience. Lena gave a small shake of her head. I didn't come here for that. Then why did you come, he asked. Lena looked around the room. At the students. At the place where she had been ignored. Mocked. Misunderstood. Then she answered. I came, to be just a student. The words were simple. But they carried everything. She did not want to be seen as a hero. She did not want attention. She did not want respect because of the past. She just wanted peace. Silence filled the room again. But this silence was different. It was not empty. It was full of understanding. The class no longer saw her as weak. They no longer saw her as nothing. They saw her as someone who had carried something far heavier than any of them. The instructor stepped back slowly. The lesson was no longer about strategy. No longer about war. It had become something else. Something real. He looked at Lena one last time. Then said quietly. Class dismissed. But no one moved. They stayed in their seats. Still looking at her. Not with laughter. Not with doubt. But with something new. Something that had just begun. Respect. The classroom stayed quiet even after the instructor said, class dismissed. No one stood up. No one rushed out like they usually did. They all remained in their seats, as if something inside them had changed, and they did not know how to move past it. At the back of the room, Lena sat still. She had already gone back to her usual posture. Calm. Silent. Almost invisible again. But this time, no one saw her that way. Then he spoke. Lena, come forward. A quiet shift passed through the room. Lena did not move right away. She looked slightly unsure. This was not what she wanted. But slowly, she stood up. Every step she took toward the front felt heavier than before. Not because of fear. But because of attention. All eyes followed her. No whispers. No laughter. Only silence. She reached the front and stopped. The instructor stepped aside. Today's lesson will change, he said. We will not use the system. He looked at Lena. You will lead. A small pause filled the room. Lena blinked once. I'm not, she started. But the instructor raised his hand gently. You have already led in places far more dangerous than this, he said. You don't need permission here. The class watched her. Waiting. Not judging. Not mocking. Waiting. Lena looked at them. For the first time, she saw something different in their faces. Not pride. Not ego. Something quieter. Something real. She took a small breath. Then nodded. Okay, she said softly. She turned toward the center of the room. There was no screen now. No simulation. Just empty space. Stand up, she said. Her voice was not loud. But everyone heard it. And everyone followed. Students stood from their seats. Rows became a group. A team. Spread out, Lena said. They moved quickly. Not because they feared her. But because they trusted her. The instructor watched from the side. Silent. Observing. Lena walked slowly between them. Looking at each one. Not judging. Measuring. Understanding. You all know strategy, she said. You all know strength. She paused. But war is not just that. The room stayed quiet. Lena pointed to the center. Form a circle. The students moved again. Faster this time. No hesitation. When they finished, Lena stepped into the middle. In battle, she said, you will not have perfect plans. She looked at one student. You will not have full information. Then another. You will not always have support. Her voice stayed calm. But you will always have a choice. A student asked carefully, what choice? Lena answered. To stand, or to break. The words were simple. But they hit hard. The horned student stood near the edge of the circle. He listened closely. No pride left in his face. Only focus. Lena continued. When everything fails, people look for someone to follow. She paused. They don't follow rank. She looked around the room. They follow action. The students understood. She was not teaching theory. She was teaching truth. Lena pointed at one student. You, she said. The student stepped forward quickly. Yes. You are leading this group now. The student looked surprised. Me? Lena nodded. Yes. A small pause. Then she gave the next command. Your team is surrounded. No escape. Limited time. What do you do? The student hesitated. He looked around. This was different from simulations. There was no clear answer. No system to guide him. Think, Lena said calmly. The student took a breath. Then spoke. We hold position. Lena shook her head slightly. Why? He paused. I don't know. The room stayed quiet. Lena stepped closer. You don't hold because you are told, she said. You hold because it means something. She looked at everyone. In war, every decision has a cost. The class listened carefully. Lena stepped back. Try again, she said. The student thought harder this time. Then answered. We split, distract the enemy, create time. Lena gave a small nod. Better. The student relaxed slightly. The lesson continued. Lena moved from one student to another. Giving them situations. Watching their reactions. Correcting them. Not harshly. But clearly. Every mistake became a lesson. Every hesitation became understanding. Time passed. But no one noticed. No one felt bored. No one looked away. Even the strongest students in the class followed her instructions without question. The same students who once believed they were better than her. Now listened like beginners. The instructor watched quietly. There was something different in the room. Something he had not seen before. This was not just a class anymore. This was growth. At one point, Lena stopped. She looked at the group. "You all want to win," she said. They nodded. "Everyone wants that." She paused. "But winning is not always possible." The room became still again. Lena's voice softened slightly. "But surviving, that is always the first goal." The students understood now. Her lessons were not about glory. They were about reality. After a while, Lena stepped back. "That's enough," she said. The class slowly relaxed. But no one spoke. They were thinking. The instructor stepped forward again. He looked at the students. Then at Lena. "Well done," he said simply. Lena gave a small nod. She stepped away from the center, returning to her place at the back. But this time, she was not invisible. As she walked, something unexpected happened. The horned student stepped aside to give her space. Another student did the same. Then another. It became a path. Clear. Respectful. No words. Just actions. Lena walked through it quietly. She reached her seat. And sat down. The same as before. But everything had changed. The class looked at her, not with curiosity, not with doubt. But with respect. Real respect. The kind that is not given easily. The kind that is earned. The instructor looked at the room one last time. Then said, "Today, you learned more than strategy." He paused. "You learned what it means to lead." No one disagreed. No one spoke. Because they all knew. The lesson was not from the system. Not from the academy. Not in the walls. Not in the systems. But in the people. A respectful silence. And at the center of it was Lena Voss. She still sat at the back of the room. She still spoke very little. She still wore the same plain uniform. Nothing about her had changed on the outside. But everything around her had. The same students who once laughed at her now looked at her with quiet respect. They did not whisper behind her back anymore. They listened. They observed. They learned. The horned student, who had once mocked her the most, now arrived early to every class. He trained harder than before. One day, during a combat exercise, he made a mistake. Before, he would have blamed someone else. Now, he stopped. He looked at Lena. Not for help. But for understanding. Lena said nothing. She just nodded once. That was enough. He corrected himself. Across the room, other students did the same. They began to think differently. Act differently. Not because they were told to. But because they had seen something real. The instructor noticed it too. The class had become sharper. Faster. More focused. They were no longer trying to prove they were strong. They were trying to become better. Days passed. Then weeks. Lena never asked to lead again. She never tried to stand out. But when training became difficult. When plans failed. When confusion started to grow. The class naturally turned toward her. And she always responded the same way. Calm. Simple. Clear. No long speeches. No pride. Just actions. One day, during a high-level simulation, the system created a near-impossible scenario. Enemy forces surrounded the team. Escape routes closed. Time running out. Panic began to spread. Students spoke over each other. Go left. No, defend here. We're losing time. The instructor watched. He did not interfere. He wanted to see what they would do. The room grew louder. More confused. Then, a quiet voice cut through the noise. Stop. It was Lena. Not loud. But strong. The room went silent. All eyes turned to her. She stood slowly. Walked to the center. Looked at the map. Then at the team. Too many voices, she said. Choose one. The students looked at each other. Then, without speaking, they stepped back. Making space. Giving control. Not because they had to. But because they trusted her. Lena looked at the map again. Her eyes moved quickly. Reading the situation. Understanding it. Split into two groups, she said. Small team draws attention. She pointed. Main group moves here, fast. A student asked, what about the ones drawing attention? Lena paused. Then answered. They know the risk. The room became quiet again. The decision was not easy. But it was real. The team followed her plan. The simulation continued. Moves were made. Time passed. And slowly, the situation changed. The main group escaped. The mission was not perfect. Losses were shown. But survival was achieved. The system displayed the result. Mission success, partial survival. The room stayed still. They had learned how to endure. After the simulation, the class slowly sat down. No one celebrated. No one complained. They just thought. Lena returned to her seat. Quiet as always. Later that day, as the class ended, the instructor stopped everyone. One moment, he said. The students looked at him. Then he spoke. There is something you all need to understand. He walked slowly across the room. Strength is not just power. He paused. It is not speed. Not weapons. Not rank. He looked toward Lena. Then back at the class. Strength is the will to stand when everything is gone. The room stayed silent. The meaning was clear. That was what they had seen in Lena. That was what they had learned. The class ended. Students began to leave. But this time, many of them paused as they passed Lena. Some nodded. Some gave a small sign of respect. No words. Just understanding. The horned student stopped near her desk. He hesitated. Then said quietly. You changed the way we see things. Lena looked up. She did not smile. But her voice was calm. You changed too. He nodded. Then walked away. Outside the classroom, the academy lights glowed softly against the darkness of space. Stars stretched far into the distance. Endless. Quiet. That evening, Lena stood alone near a large window. Looking out at the stars. The same stars she had once fought under. The same stars that had seen war. Loss. Survival. She stood still. Hands behind her back. No medals. No signs of what she had done. Just a quiet presence. A reflection appeared beside her. The instructor. He stood a short distance away. You could have been anything, he said. A commander. A hero. A symbol. Lena did not turn. I didn't want that, she replied. The instructor nodded slowly. I know. A short silence passed. Then he said. But whether you wanted it or not, you became something more. Lena finally looked at him. He continued. You became a lesson. She said nothing. He looked out at the stars. At this academy, many will forget theories. They will forget numbers. They will forget lessons. He paused. But they will not forget you. Lena turned back toward the window. Her voice was soft. They shouldn't remember me. The instructor gave a small smile. They won't remember just you, he said. They will remember what you showed them. He stepped back. Silent. Strong. The camera slowly pulled back. The academy shining in space. Inside it. A class that had changed. Students who now understood. And a quiet human girl. Who carried the legacy of something far greater than herself. A legacy not built on power. But on survival. On courage. On standing when everything else falls. The narrator's final words echoed softly. They once mocked her, because they did not understand her. But when they saw the truth, they saw the true strength of humanity.